Hello, hello again. My name is Eriks, and I will use clicker. Last speaker, I guess, for today. So thank you everybody who stayed. I hope you are willing to listen to me for half an hour. Anyway, for today I'm going to be speaking, just introducing myself just shortly about the company, what we do, and then I will shortly review BIM projects in Baltics, and main presentation will be focused on case studies. I will review 5 projects that I picked myself, and I will point out one noteworthy characteristic from each project, which I think it's very interesting, and also it will broaden your view on BIM use cases, because there's many ways how we can use BIM technology, and I would like to show you some, maybe not the sort of traditional ways, which is clash management, quality, but also some other ways how you can use and apply technology to add some value into your project. So, in one sentence, what we are providing digital construction services. We are a company operating in Baltic states, Latvia, Estonia, and Lithuania. We have experience with more than 1 million square meters, and we are currently operating on more than 20 projects. We have a background in project management and construction, and I'm not afraid to say that we have quite advanced BIM capabilities. When it comes to our services, we provide sort of first is BIM requirement development. It's quite very often when the owner or the customer don't know where to start, so we prepare all the documentation and tender documentation to help sort of start requiring BIM. Then of course we provide BIM project management, BIM expertise. Whenever you have to make sure that when somebody delivers BIM to you, you want to make sure that you pay for the good service. So we are here for help. And of course BIM coordination, BIM consultancy, and sometimes we also develop BIM strategies. Recently we developed BIM strategies for Riga Airport Station, for State Road Administration, and etc. And of course, for the 5D, 6D, BIM, if you remember from Ernest's presentation, those acronyms was mentioned, and I will touch a little bit on them a little bit later. So, BIM in Baltics, and I'm not going to jump into sort of the systems in a way already presented by Jan and Dmitry, and also other colleagues from Lithuania. I would like to emphasize the fact that when it comes to Baltics, BIM is used in many different types of the project. It doesn't necessarily have to be big commercial project, right? Like big hotel building as we are staying here, or like any other residential sort of big buildings. You know, BIM is applied for both commercial buildings like big offices, shopping malls, logistics centers. It applied to public buildings like court buildings, schools, museums. It of course applied to residential buildings, as we also notice how YIT is executing that, like multiple different buildings. Also, what is interesting, BIM is also applied in a private housing. You know, so I would like to emphasize it's not necessarily have to be very big project. You know, you can start very small and you will get some benefits out of it, believe me. And of course, last but not least, BIM is applied also in infrastructure projects. And all of these projects are from our portfolio. You know, and just for you to understand that there's not only big projects applies for your pilot projects. My personal recommendation is not necessarily start with super big project, because it will bring quite a lot of inconveniences, because there's a lot of changes involved in the BIM process itself. So, BIM case studies. First BIM case study will be a multifunctional building press system. This is right now the largest private investment project executed in Riga. A little bit more about it. It's an office, hotel, and multifunctional building. It's located in Riga. The size of it's more than 100,000 square meters, so it's not small, to put it in simple terms. Regarding disciplines which were modeled in BIM, it was I was thinking to write it all, but I decided to split it. So basically, architectural, structural, all MEP, and of course, landscape was modeled. When it comes to BIM uses, first is to improve design quality. So just design and BIM environment, ensure that the quality of design doesn't bring some inconsistencies whenever you have to go to the tender phase. Then think of quantities from BIM model, ensure that the quantities are correct and can be used then for budgeting purposes. Then collect this BIM model together, federate the BIM model, and bring it to the construction company so they can evaluate project in more detail, which means that there will be less risk for construction companies. And that means that the price most probably will be lower. Most probably you know that whenever you receive quite poor documentation from project, you add some percentages to the cost, because you don't know what's happening, you don't know what's the hidden inside. So BIM is a very nice tool during the budgeting phase to ensure that the construction company understand your project right and don't add unnecessary costs. Then of course we use this to ensure construction work were executed accordingly. Provide information, and yeah, there's one thing I would like to emphasize about this particular project. So in this project there was this situation when in the middle of construction the owner of the customer of the building had to change from one construction company to another. You can imagine how hard can it be, especially for this large of the project, right? And this is the thing that I would like to highlight the most. So what we did, we just laser scanned everything what was built. And this is just an example of it. And we use BIM model and laser scan data. We took information from fabricators. We took information from what is constructed on the site. We took information also from financial statements to just understand what exactly happening and provided color-coded status information to customers so that he would understand what exactly is built, what still is in the phase of construction, what elements are still in the factories, to give the full information about what's going on at this particular moment. And in the end, it's not about the visual thing. It's about below. It's about the spreadsheet. Ultimately, Excel is still used, and I think it will be used for quite a while, because ultimately BIM is a data that we use for decision making. Next project is office building, again located in Riga, a little bit more than 60,000 square meters. Architectural structure and all MEP the models was made, and from BIM uses, again, you will see the trend in my presentation that, again, first and foremost, improve the design quality. We do design, you first build it digitally, and when you can see that design actually is constructible, you literally can build it, all the quantities in there, all the information here, then you proceed to the construction phase. And then the construction phase, again, starts with the taking of quantities. You want reliable quantities to get the best price you have. Then you use this documentation for budgeting purposes, again, educating construction companies and providing them as transparent information as you can to avoid redundancies and make sure that they don't add unnecessary costs, right? The next thing, during the construction phase, we use BIM technologies to track processes and to track what's been built, what's not. And one thing that I would emphasize from this project, most noteworthy characteristic, that we used we applied 4D BIM methodology, right? So you notice this 4D acronyms, also it was told by Ernestus, but what it means in practice. Well, first, it's a visualization. So this is very nice view. I personally called it Hollywood BIM because it's nice for customer or maybe others who doesn't really understand the process for construction to just simply understand what's happening on site, how the building will be built. But the reality, what the most interesting thing is these two graphs. Because ultimately, you can take BIM model, connect with the schedule, and when you understand what's happening right now in a construction site, you just measure it against the baseline, project baseline, or sort of say, you always have a schedule tied with your contract. That's the baseline. And then you have the situation on the construction site. And then you can measure, not by percentages, but by precise quantities, what exactly is the situation right now, and how much money customer have to pay to the construction company at this particular moment. So don't use percentages, which are very subjective. I believe everybody knows that. But use specific quantities, and it's relatively easy to do if you have the model. You just choose which element has been built and just extract quantities. Next project is Rail Baltica. This is currently one of the largest infrastructure projects in Europe, not necessarily in Baltics. Of course, in Baltics, this is by far the biggest project right now. And I just want to say that this project has one of the most complicated BIM requirements I have ever faced. And I've been involved in BIM for more than 10 years. And so this, and it's actually breakdown in multiple different stages. We are involved in multiple stages, and I will show you particular about Riga Airport Station junction, in which we are executing both the station and infrastructure. By infrastructure, I mean also railways, roads, stations, and etc. So all external networks also is modeled. So when you're thinking about BIM, we're not necessarily thinking only about buildings. We can start with buildings, but if you think about, there's tremendous amount of value for us if we are modeling everything which is below the ground. Because right now, to understand what exactly is below the ground, you just have to dig everything up and just see for yourself. If you have a digital model, you can spare it, you know. And when it comes to BIM uses, these uses come from employee information requirements. It's a technical specification developed by the owner or by the customer, written down what exactly and how exactly we must use BIM. So there's a lot of different uses. I'm not going to go through them all because there's a lot of them. One trick, if you're interested in all Rail Baltica documentation, feel free to just Google Rail Baltica BIM, and that's it. It will be enough for you to find all of the documentation. It's available for free. You can read it, you can study it, and you can also review what each of these uses means. I can say you that in practice, we actually have to execute all of them. Each and all of them we have to execute, and with the highest level of detail. It was mentioned a little bit today during the presentation that there are many levels of detail, and in this particular project we have to deliver the highest detail as built model, meaning that when the project is built, we have to deliver precise digital twins containing all information about assets or elements, including documentation, information about the producer, many different attributes, and etc. And one thing I would like to point out in this project, whenever you encounter large-scale projects and complicated projects like that, and actually sometimes even small projects per se, I mean, we use this approach for any project, is how to define tasks for designers to ensure that you receive good quality BIM. Because you can say I've been working when I received the contract and the customer say, I have a clause about the BIM. Please deliver me BIM, you know. and you know, it's very hard to justify what exactly a designer must deliver. And in order to avoid these sometimes conflicts with the designers, because sometimes they don't want to do that, they just don't want to model anything, we create visualized scope of work that each designer must deliver in each phase and level of detail. Which means that you are clearly stating with a visual picture to, say, ventilation engineer, you must deliver ventilation ducts in the first phase, then you have to go with the connections, and then later you also have to add some additional elements, and also information to that element. So this is just a way of explaining the task that you want your designers to execute. And this is very, very helpful when you're dealing with the designers who don't have that big of experience with BIM. Of course, we have some companies which we work, they already know from, you don't need to explain everything, they just know that. But it's not always the case, especially for complicated project as this one. So the next one, again, is office apartment building, quite large, sitting on the river bank in Riga. Again, more or less all disciplines was modeled. And this was an interesting project for us because we received models only after they were designed. And interesting thing, the designer claimed that all BIM was okay and everything was right. So what we did, we expertized the project. So we want to make sure that the data they deliver to customer is usable for next stage, meaning that you can use it for budgeting purposes. So we did the audit of it, we review it, we run some different algorithms to ensure that everything is in a required quality, because there was BIM requirements in a contract. Second, what we did, we took off all the quantities and we prepared all the tender documentation. And the interesting thing about it is what we did, we took all cost estimates. You know, you sometimes do cost estimate before you send to construction companies to just set the benchmark for your budget. Right? You have to understand what is your benchmark to just before, because if the benchmark will be too high, your business model will not going to go through. So you have to go back to the drawing board, find a way to fit in within a scope of business model, right? So what we did here, I mean, this slide it's very messy, but that's the reality. We took information from BIM model, classified, and just literally compare with the cost estimates. And what we were focusing on particular quantities and information about those elements to ensure that the properties of elements, say the mark of steel, the quantities of steel correspond to the quantities presented by the designers. And we actually, in this particular project, we actually found quite significant improvements. I'm not going to say a particular amount of money that we save, but this relatively small and simple exercise help us to reduce significant amount of cost. And it's not necessarily about cost. This is relatively simple way how we can apply BIM model for like very simple way. And if you think about BIM not as like 3D model or not like something visual, but just like a database, then then you can apply this database for multiple different decision-making purposes. So this particular project, we of course review the model as 3D objects and elements and attributes, but mostly we view BIM as database. What's happening within a project? What exactly we have? And by database, I mean Excel spreadsheet. Everybody knows Excel spreadsheet, everybody knows how to work with them. We took the model, extracted data in a way that it can be used in Excel, and just compare the data. Last but not least, it's a hotel building in Vilnius, relatively small building. But what's interesting about this project, it used the usage of it for facility management. So what we did for this project, we collected all of the data during the construction phase, all the documentation, all information, everything related to this project, and combined in one federated 3D model. Of course, during the construction time and during the construction process, the model was maintained, meaning whenever some changes occur, those changes are implemented in 3D BIM. And the reality is that it's not as simple as it might appear, because designers are not always willing to modify BIM model, even though BIM supervision and authoring supervision of the project is one of the main responsibilities of the designer, at least in our country. Right? So the main idea was to collect all this information to avoid the situation when all the project documentation is delivered in a paper in one relatively large room, which cannot be properly used. By that I mean you cannot search this information, it's very complicated to navigate it. But when you have this model like federated everything in one place. You can just click on a column, you can identify where it is, you can click on ventilation unit, you can understand where it's located, what is the warranty, what are the requirements to maintain it, who's responsible to maintain it, and etc. It's all digital, and you can search it like in a Google search. Okay, I will end my presentation with some takeaways. So first, set achievable and measurable BIM goals. And by that I mean start small and then grow big. There's the saying, you don't eat an elephant by one piece, you just eat it piece by piece. So think about BIM as sort of an elephant, which you have to eat piece by piece to just start slicing your elephant piece by piece and it will be fine. Second thing, start early. Don't wait till the late stage of the project. The earlier you begin, the better it is for you. Otherwise, it's very messy procedure when you have to convert from 2D to 3D, then from 3D to BIM, and etc. It's very messy procedure, and it's often more expensive than starting BIM from early stage. Third is develop BIM requirements. Without BIM requirements, you will receive something, and then you will have to spend much time with the meetings with the designers to justify why exactly you meant like that and why they didn't deliver exactly what you wanted to deliver, and etc. So set this documentation up front. Then make sure that design and construction team has sufficient BIM capabilities. Ask them who will be the responsible, assign BIM roles, ask who will be the one who will be delivering this particular BIM model. What is the name and the surname and the phone and email? Ensure that you receive information about what is the team, what is their capabilities. And if you remember, there was also a presentation for Dmitry. There was a way how you can check them. And actually, State Real Estate has developed very sufficient way to ensure that they receive BIM according to their sort of requirements, ensuring that the quality of people involved are sufficient enough. Next is to make sure BIM execution plan, which if you remember, many times was mentioned throughout the presentations, is very detailed. It's not enough to say we will just create BIM using Revit and that's it. You have to be very, very precise. And you as a customer must read it and ensure that you find all answers to your BIM requirements. Next is to make sure the BIM process is coordinated. And by that I mean sometimes there's a requirement, sometimes there's BIM execution plan. Everything seems very clear, like, okay, we are doing BIM, let's go. But the issue is that there's no coordination procedures in place. In a BIM, you have to make a meeting sometimes bi-weekly, which means that every week each designer delivers BIM model with all the information by uploading that in common data environment, and then BIM coordinator reviews it and develops a report. And it's done sometimes weekly, sometimes one time per 2 weeks, depending on the stage, but still it must be coordinated. You cannot leave it be just with some documentation. You have to maintain control. Next, to make sure you are capable of checking BIM deliverables. And you have to be sure that you can evaluate quality of your deliverables. You know, sometimes similarly as it's when you receive some structural design, you tend to seek some other structural designers, hey, could you please make sure that the thing that I receive is in good quality and my building is secure and safe and I can literally build it. The same applies to BIM. Make sure that you can evaluate quality. And our recommendation, and my personal recommendation, if you don't have this expertise, hire BIM experts. You can develop your own competencies along the way, learn from them, but first it's better to start with some BIM experts and later on it's your decision whether you would like to develop your internal BIM department or continue working there. And the last thing I would like to point out is communication. I mean, communication in any BIM project, it's crucial. You have to communicate, you have to be open. BIM process and documentation is never rigid. You always have to be agile. You have to change. In case you notice that something is wrong, communicate it, change it, and move and go forward. Okay, with that I will end my presentation. Yeah, thank you very much. I guess if you will have some questions, we will have a comment. Thank you.